Ken, first of all, how you been, dude?
You have been avoiding me. Is that how this has gone?
We've been running. I got to be honest. We were a little angry. We were a little nervous, a little salty. You guys were starting to have a lot of success, and you were leaving us in the dumpster team bin, and frankly, it was a little jealous.
We got this whiteboard where it's like not Ken Carman days, and we just tick off another one every time. It's over now.
Well, yeah, you got Jaden Daniels now, and you're not paying him $230 million, so you're good.
We should be all right there. Big fan of the rookie quarterback contract. A lot of things I want to ask you about Cleveland, but the reason we got you on is, so yesterday we're talking about the Commander's name, which is still wildly unpopular. There was a poll in the Post that dropped yesterday, or I guess 2 days ago now, that said almost 60% of fans either don't like it or hate it. And we hear from people on the lines all the time that refuse to say the name, what have you. We had a caller who asked us, how do Indians, now Guardians fans, feel in Cleveland? Have they just taken to the name begrudgingly, or do they hate the name? Where are they at in their relationship with the name? And we're like, we have no idea. So let's get Ken on to talk about it.
Oh, that's an easy question. There's a contingent that embrace it. There is a contingent, I think the largest is those who begrudgingly embrace it, knowing that the old name's never going to come back, so they're going to get used to this one. And then there is I think a very vocal minority, but the lowest minority of those who will never ever call them by the Guardians, only want to call them by the Tribe, only post Chief Wahoo memes on the internet, and say they're never going to go to baseball games again. So that there's basically three groups right there, and that's what you get.
How have those percentages changed since the rollout?
Well, when they first did the name, there was a lot of people saying they're never going to go to baseball games again. And I'm going, yeah, we're kind of like 28th in attendance, so you weren't going to games in the first place. I think now it's just, I think people the team's done well to start the season. And I think that people want to be a part of a winner, and they want to support the team as best they can. Their attendance hasn't been bad. It's still lower third, but their attendance hasn't been nearly as terrible as what it's been in the past. And I think that people are embracing it. I don't know if we're ever going to embrace, at least not my generation. I think it'll be maybe embraced by my son's generation, but it doesn't make me not want to watch the baseball team. I'm going on Sunday. So I think that for me, it's like, hey, I'd rather just have pro baseball in Cleveland. I think a lot of people feel that way. And yeah, there's no contention if I say like Kenny Lofton did this, and this with the Cleveland Indians. Like, I don't get a bunch of pushback on that because they were called the Indians. But when I talk about Jose Ramirez, I talk about him with the Indians and Guardians, and a lot of guys with the Guardians. So it's just a push for accuracy. I don't think anybody's being malicious or anything like that. It's just coming from where the accuracy is and wanting it to be. And right now, it's still kind of in a state of flux is the best way I can say it. I thought that was going to be an easy answer, but then you asked that question, and then that was a little bit more difficult.
Well, we got our shovels out. We're going to keep digging here. Ken Carman, who does radio in Cleveland. So much of what you just said is so relatable, by the way.
Oh, my God.
That any other market, they're like, oh, that's interesting. And we're like, we're living the exact same parallel life here in D.C., although it's a little different with the Redskins name by nature because, like, every time even Josh Harris says Darrell Green was a great Redskin, let's just say hypothetically. Mike Florio writes a piece about A, that he shouldn't have said it, and B, that the team is keeping the old name alive, and are they going back to the old name? And so there is that element, that layer that we kind of deal with here, where there's a lot of people that just don't ever want to hear the name again. And then there are people going, it's a football team that I grew up loving. Please leave me alone. So that juxtaposition is not really going anywhere.
Yeah. I wonder also, well, Josh Harris saying it is different. I kind of got a theory about the name Commanders there. And you guys might think it's stupid because I'm an outsider. But as an outsider, can I just throw it out there that so many people were sick of Dan Snyder and he came up with a name they want to not get rid of being called the Redskins altogether. I don't think you're ever going back to that, but just you want to wash yourself and cleanse yourselves of Dan Snyder.
Ken, you been listening to my inner musings? Because that's it.
All right, I got it right.
That's it. No, that's not everybody. There's a huge. We do this. We break this down, multiple ways, similar to what you did with the Indians, now Guardians. There's a group it's Redskins. Well, it isn't, but to them it is. can't argue with you. There's nothing. I'm not mad at them. I understand, but there's nothing to be said there. Then there's the group that goes, I can't stand it. A, because it's a dumb name, but B, whether Snyder came up with it in a brainstorming session or someone in his employ did, it reminds me of him, and he sucks the most. Just shoot it with the fire that they used in Alien to kill the aliens.
I mean, maybe changing the name was the last straw, because let me explain it this way. Like, obviously the Browns weren't necessarily kicking ass and taking names for 20 years there, right? We went through a uniform change in 2015, and the uniforms were not very good, to the point where I don't think the owners like the uniforms very much. I think that was the deal with the uniform maker. I'll leave names out of it. And the uniform maker just had a terrible swing and a terrible miss, and we were stuck with them for 5 years, to the point that they tried to wear their color rush jerseys as much as possible and not have to wear their every Sunday game jerseys. And I think one of the things that really hurt it was not just that the team was bad, is that they didn't look like the classic Cleveland Browns. And so it really had a disconnect with a lot of fans. And now it's almost back to the exact way it was. And I think it's easier for a lot of people to jump back in and be a Browns fan, because yes, the team is better, but also that they look the same way. You know, for a lot of football fans there, it's not just the name change. That might have been the last straw for some of those folks. And this is my outsider's perspective in guessing here. And I know you were asking me about how we've dealt with the Guardians name change, and we can go back to that. But I also do believe that there was so many things, like every single thing Dan Snyder touched there turned terrible, went terrible. And that was one of the proudest fan bases that you're going to find in all professional football, and in a football crazed area. And it became alarming to us as outsiders, going, man, everybody wants to talk football. Everybody loves football. But look what's happening in D.C. Look at where the Nationals are now in comparison to where the Commanders are. Look at how they feel about their sports. Look at where the Ravens have kind of crept into that area instead of where the Commanders are. Like, bad ownership and embarrassing ownership can hurt you greatly. And I think that was kind of the last straw for some people. And so maybe to cleanse it, I don't know if I would want to go with just a brand new name just a few years after you change the old one, but maybe it's something they should strongly consider.
Our guest has been through what we are going through here in D.C. They're still working on it in Cleveland as well. Ken Carman, 92.3 The Fan on Grant and Danny. So convoluted couple of parter here on the name. But number one, do fans like the name Guardians? It is similar enough. I mean, even half the jersey kind of looks the same. Like the poll and the post, and some of these people, as you said, are never anything elsers. They just want Redskins. But a lot of people just don't like the name. Like when Danny and I say it on the radio, it sounds cheesy and like some arcade made up football team on a video game. We don't really like the name. Him more so than me. But what is the popularity of the name itself in terms of Guardians? And then for you on air, or just the media members in town, is everyone just kind of using it now and it's part of the furniture, you don't think about it? Or is there still people that refuse to use it?
I think there's a lot of tough talking online, but you guys know that's like 10% of the people you talk to. I mean, there's 90% of the people who are just living their everyday lives, and they're not posting memes to you every single day and every single moment of the day about, you know, the Chief Wahoo and the Indians and things like that. So there's plenty of people who've just are trying to get used to the name Guardians, and they move on. And sometimes, like my co-host Anthony, he accidentally says Indians a ton when talking about the current team. It's popped out of my mouth a couple of times. It just happens, especially because we talk a lot of history. I think a lot of people, though, it's been a little bit easier because it does look very similar. Some people said it's cheap. It's easy to call Paul Dolan cheap. It's a sentence that people say every single day. It looks a lot like what the Indians logo looked like. There wasn't a lot of name change. Guardians was a name that when people started talking about changing the name 20 years ago, it was a name that people were talking about. It was by far, if there was going to be an alternative, it was the most popular name change that they were going to find. The only thing, and in the colors are still in the color scheme. And they had been, and people don't like to hear this, they had been phasing out Chief Wahoo way before they said they were phasing out Chief Wahoo. You go look at the hats from the 1990s, how big the logo was on the front of the hat, and then how small the logo got, and then how many times they just wore the block C, and they phased that out way before they started talking about phasing that out. And then one of the very interesting things is the logos. The C changed a little bit. The problem that I had, and I think the problem that what a lot of Guardians fans has, I almost called them the Indians right there, is their primary logo is this winged G with it's like holding a baseball, and it looks like Paulie Walnuts from The Sopranos in his hair, and it does look like a cheap logo. It looks like a travel baseball logo, and the City Connect uniforms came out. People like the City Connect uniforms a ton. They're very good looking, and people are thinking, man, if you wanted to do a change now, this would be the change that we'd want. The logo for the City Connect uniforms is great. The uniforms are great. If they were going to think about a change, I think that a lot of fans are like, all right, fine, it's been long enough. If you really want to go the full way, this is the full way we could go, because they're very nice.
92.3 The Fans, Ken Carman with us here, all the way from Cleveland. So, Ken, I don't know how privy you were to this, but so forgive if any of this is repeat. But the rollout for us was one of the things that I think people have the biggest gripe with overall. It was this weird multi-year almost process where they were doing videos about what the production, and they probably leaked out what the actual name was going to be in a mirror image of one of the names on the sheet. And the whole thing was this drawn out process. You guys, we all logged into Twitter one day and Tom Hanks was like, we stand on guard. We're like, what the hell just happened? And it was over. How much do you think, and this is probably impossible to answer, but do your best. How much do you think that rollout where there's nothing drawn out, there's no hype, it's just rug pulled and it's the new thing, how much do you think that helped, hurt? Quantify that for me.
I think it helped because there was less time to sit, and the team was successful at the time, or competitive, I should say. I think that helps, and there was less time there was just less time to sit there and agonize over it. It was really a few months process. They said they had like 1,200 names, and so we would make gags about what could the possible names be, and then one day they just rolled it out, and it was a Friday, and they took their licks from the people who hated it, and that was it. And we're going to be called the Indians for the rest of the year, but next year we are going to be called the Guardians, and that is it. And that was it. And they have been a successful franchise in baseball relative terms. Like, they haven't won a World Series in 76 years, but they compete for the division. They make the postseason. Baseball moves like life. There's plenty of successful people who never became titans of industry in all of our neighborhoods. And I think that that's kind of the way Cleveland fans look at the Guardians. And so I think that helps. I really think that helps. Jose Ramirez stayed. People here love him. He stayed for about $100 million discount, which never happens, certainly in a market like Cleveland. And I think him staying has helped legitimize the name a little bit. So there's been a lot of olive branches from the status of winning, the status of having a player that you can get behind like Jose Ramirez, who seems like a person who loves it here, who's come from a different place where, people who are born here, they live here, they die here, and a lot of people have no choice in that matter. It's a Midwest city. And a guy who's choosing to stay here with us, who had plenty of other options and took a $100 million discount, I think that has really helped the way the fans to take on the name and to say the name is okay and then move on. Because again, I do not think my son is going to care about the nickname. I don't think my son's sons are going to care about, or their daughters or whatever are going to care about the name. I think that's a big deal to guys older than me and maybe guys my age, and that's it.
Guardians are one of the best teams in the league. Within a couple games of the best record in the AL. They're the best home team in front of the crowds that we were hearing about at the start of the segment. Last thing for me on this, one issue we've had with Commanders, a 3-syllable name, is the shortening of it. What do you guys shorten Guardians to? Like, what is, you called it like a nickname, but are they the G's? Or do you have to say Guardians every time?
The Guards?
I'm not making a terrible joke here. I swear to God, the first thing I thought it was, well, you call them the commies. It's like, well, you're in D.C., dude.
Well, you're not the first one to say it. Like, every Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants fan calls them that, all day long.
I'm really not trying to do radio hack joke there. But I swear to God,
seriously,
was my first thought.
You ain't wrong.
Yeah, we're screwed is the point.
People tried to do so. People tried to call them the G-men, which was weird.
I hate that.
That's a no from me.
Yeah, I'll pass.
Yeah, I hated it. One of my coworkers, one of my other co-hosts on the station tried that, and it was bad. Someone tried to call them the G's. That didn't really go. The team itself has gotten behind the Guards. It doesn't really roll off the tongue. It sounds like I'm yakking on a bone a little bit, but I kind of got used to that, so it's okay. Somebody said Gardos. One of my co-host friends said Gardos.
I don't love
And
that.
whatever,
as much.
man.
I don't hate that as much. I kind of like that one the most.
Guys, I do radio in the morning, I do TV in the evening, and I'm just like, Gardos first pitch 7:10. I'm like, I don't know how many people out there like hearing me say that. It's just an accident. It says guards on the prompter, and I'm sitting there going Gardos. It's a total accident. It rolls off the tongue. Some people love it. Some people hate it. Some people have told me to stop saying it. I'm like, I can't help myself now.
Now it's in.
The Gardos. We don't have a version of that, but I might roll.
Yeah.
I guess Commandos maybe. But then you're
That's not shorter.
Then you're also doesn't that just mean you're not wearing underwear? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that doesn't work that much. I mean, it does. Really.
You can do it fine.
Extremely comfortable.
Some people are doing it right now.
Yeah, but
Manders, don't work. No, that's bad.
That's
really
that's part of it, honestly.
Thing, don't you?
Yeah, that's part of it. Is that honestly, they're all bad, and that's a huge thing for affinity, for brand building, for people to actually kind of get in on it. There's no easy nickname.
Is our perception even correct? Danny asked like definitively as if the rollout came out of nowhere. For us, it did here. Like we just saw the Tom Hanks video one morning.
Yeah.
24 hours before that, did you guys know it was coming, or was it a non-story?
Yeah, we did. No, we knew. Like again, it was again, you guys are outsiders, just like I am there, so it's no big deal. This was a few-month process. It really was a lot quicker than anything.
But like the day before, did you know the next morning at 8 a.m. the tweet was coming out?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Going back, I'm not sure if the public did.
Gotcha.
I think they might have, but I remember I was picking up food for my family for lunch, and I remember this guy just complaining like crazy. And I'm looking at him going, you've never been to a Guardians game. And at that time, Indians game. Like, you're not going to the games. Right. Oh, I'm never going to a game. You didn't go to games in the first place. But again, that's not a great thing to say, because you always want to have fans want to come to a game for the first time. So that's not going to help out. But at the same time, it's not hurt business. There's a couple of sticklers, guys, who they get at me as much as they can about that name, and they hate it when I point to their attendance in 2019 before the pandemic, and I point to their attendance now, and I'm like, it didn't hurt. You are lying to yourself. It did not hurt attendance the way you made it out to be. Nope, not true. And they hate hearing that. So what are you going to do?
Keep needling them, I think, is probably your plan. Ken, this is great, buddy. Appreciate the time, man. Have an awesome weekend.
Hey, thank you, guys. You guys take care. You too.
Good catching up, buddy. There's Ken Carman in Cleveland, 92.3 The Fan.